Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So, finally getting back to seeing some movies. Again, these aren't really much of what's currently in the theaters. It's me catching up on stuff I wanted to watch, but couldn't because I had to take a short sabbatical. But the first movie up, I finally got around to seeing. Movie I originally wanted to see when I first saw the preview for it, then as I learned more about it, I kind of lost interest in it. And when it came out, I was like, okay, I'll still go see it just for the review. Then I just kind of forgot about it. And finally it caught up with me to where I was like, okay, might as well go see it because it's still playing and I still kind of want to do a review on it even though I don't have much interest in it anymore. And that was Deepwater Horizon. So what did I think of Deepwater Horizon? It was okay, I guess, for what it was. A little on the slow-paced side, but at the same time, once everything started finally happening, it wasn't hard to follow and it actually kept you interested for the climax of the movie, I guess. So for those of you who don't know, this is based on a true story. Again, I don't know how much of this is 100% true and how much of it was hyped up for the Hollywood film. But this is actually based on the BP oil disaster from back in 2008, I want to say. I believe it was 2008 when the BP oil line was gushing oil into the bottom of the ocean and everyone was freaking out about it. I remember those events taking place, but this movie actually enlightened me to an event that I wasn't aware of happened at that point. I mean, I vaguely remember hearing briefly about it on the news, but most of the coverage I heard of didn't have anything to do with the Deepwater Horizon, which was the name of the oil platform that they were on. It mostly had to do with, BP's oil line broke and is leaking oil into the ocean. So what I remember about that on the news was they were drilling for oil or whatever, or it was an existing oil platform that was in operation, and one day, for some reason, one or two or three or something of the check valves failed all simultaneously, causing a rupture in the pipe in the ocean, and it was just leaking out oil, and they weren't able to repair it right away. Now, where the movie comes into place is that oil rig that they were on when they were drilling for oil apparently actually exploded and burst into flames and was burning for, I guess, a couple days, and a lot of people died. And like I said, I vaguely remember hearing something about an explosion on an oil platform, but for the most part, all I remember was the pipe leaking oil into the ocean. I don't really remember much news coverage about the oil platform. But apparently it was something that happened, so, it educated me as far as that goes, I guess. So the movie kind of starts out with the part that you see in the preview where the guy's talking to his daughter and she's got a science experiment or science class project or whatever where she's talking about how her dad fights dinosaurs because he works on an oil platform. And then he's going out to the oil platform. I guess they're out there like 3 weeks at a time. Then they go home for like a month or whatever, then come back out for 3 weeks. And as he's going out, he's supposed to pick up safety procedures right where the team that's leaving left off. And as he gets there, he finds out that a lot of those safety procedures were skipped, or, they did like one test on them instead of the 20 they were supposed to do, and then they're like, okay, it's good, and left. And you later find out they were actually ordered to leave by the higher-ups from BP who were placed in charge of this oil platform. So it wasn't BP as a whole of the company saying cut corners. It was these two guys who, I guess, had a track record of bad oil wells or something like that, and they were always like too many days out and over budget and everything from what their deadlines were. So in an attempt to kind of rectify that in this situation, they cut a lot of corners and a lot of safety precautions. And as you can guess, it all led to a giant mishap and there was an explosion. So that's basically what we follow is them trying to get these guys to do the proper safety checks, but at the same time being pressured because even though they operate the well, they're under contract to BP and all that, so they kind of have to follow orders even if it's against their better interests, and it ends up costing them in the long run. A lot of safety checks are skipped, and it ends up leading to oil line exploding, and at first it's just spraying oil all over the place, and a couple people are injured, and I think a couple of them actually got killed just from the oil erupting out of the pipe. But then, as the oil's kind of wreaking havoc on the oil platform, it ends up igniting, and now they have this giant fire going, and they're trying to evacuate everyone and whatnot. and at the same time they try to cut the pipe, which would actually seal it off, which would stop the oil from coming up the pipe and feeding the fire. And I guess they're saying that is what malfunctioned, was the sealing off of the pipe, and the pipe ended up getting cut like halfway but then remained open, so that's what was actually leaking the oil out into the ocean, which isn't exactly what I remember. I mean, I vaguely remember something about the cut off of the pipe not working properly, but that was like one of the 4 things that I remember they said failed. There was like other lock mechanisms that were supposed to be in place that weren't there or malfunctioned or whatever, but yeah, the main thing was the pipe cutter malfunctioned and only cut the pipe halfway, and that's what was causing the leaking. So basically the movie just kind of shows like what actually supposedly led up to it and what caused it. Again, I don't know how much was edited for movie's sake. It kind of gives more in depth about why the equipment failed and like the actual disaster on the oil platform where a lot of people died. It does say at the end that the 2 guys from BP who did a lot of corner cutting were charged with manslaughter and actually doing time in prison, so I guess that's kind of BP's way of distancing themselves from what happened. But at the same time, you know, it's still a pretty big tragedy. They said it's still one of the biggest oil tragedies in U.S. history. So it's not to say that this type of thing hasn't happened other places, but here in the U.S. it's one of the biggest in history. And it then says that, you know, the oil continued to spill in the ocean for like 87 days afterwards or something. The thing is, I remember back when everyone was complaining about the oil spilling out into the ocean. I remember hearing the amount, like per hour or something, that was being spilled out in the ocean. And honestly, the ocean's bottom, or the ocean surface, whatever you want to call it, underneath all the water, naturally secretes oil anyway. And the numbers they were saying was in line with what naturally secretes out of the ocean on a daily basis anyway. So that's why I was kind of like, it's no more than what would normally be seeping out, except, you know, this is in a area where the marine life is more visible because people are paying attention to it, I guess. Or if it was out in the middle of the ocean and just like an oil geyser erupted under the middle of nowhere, no one was there to see it, you know, no one would really pay that much attention to it. It's just when it's called attention to that, hey, there's oil leaking in the ocean, that people seem to get up in arms about it. You know, it's kind of like that when a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound type of question. You know, oil erupts out of the ocean every day. Marine life gets killed off every day because they swim through oil pockets. But it's not a company doing it. It's the earth. You know, so really what was spilled out in the ocean wasn't the huge tragedy. And that's where I kind of get upset with this movie, is because that's all I heard about on the media was, oh, there's oil spilling out in the ocean, and what about all the marine life? And almost zero attention was given to all these people that lost their lives on this oil platform because of mishandling of procedures through the corporation. You know, and that should really be more of the news story than, oh, there's a little bit of oil spilling out in the ocean. And again, I don't want to get all the PETA people and things like that upset with me. I'm not saying that the humans are more important than the animals or anything like that. I'm just saying that an actual tragedy was shuffled to the wayside by focusing more on the environmental impact than, you know, a couple people screwed up royally and a lot of people lost their lives because of it. And in turn, it ended up resulting in an economical event that we may still be recovering from to this day. I'm not 100% sure. Once the pipe was sealed, you never heard another word about it. It wasn't like, oh, cleanup efforts continue or anything like that. It's just like once the pipe was sealed, we're no longer spilling oil. Okay, it's dead media now. Move on to whatever political scandal story we can dig up this week. That's why I really hate U.S. media. It has become such a joke, and it focuses on agendas and whatnot. And I don't want this video to become a political platform for me. I just want you people to realize that if any of you heard about the BP oil disaster and all you remember was, oh, there was a pipe leaking oil into the ocean and it was an environmental tragedy, there was more to that story. And our media chose to ignore it because they can get better ratings and more social response to the environmental tragedy instead of the human tragedy. You know, this movie kind of draws light to that, which I hate to say. It takes a Hollywood film for people to realize, oh, there was more to this than we realized. You know, but at this point, what do? I mean, it's 8 years gone now. We're just now really finding out the full story. Overall, what did I think of the film? Like I said, it opened my eyes to quite a bit of what I didn't know about this story. But at the same time, this isn't a movie I would have normally sought out to watch. Like I said, from the first preview, I didn't even realize it was about the BP oil disaster. I just thought it was about people working on an oil well when it blew up. I didn't even 100% realize it was based on a true story until later on after I finally decided to watch it. What would I give it as far as a star rating? I don't know, I guess a 3. Like I said, it wasn't a bad film, just, I don't know what initially appealed to me about it, but obviously it wasn't too much because, like I said, once it actually came out, I kind of avoided seeing it, and it was just because I kind of lost interest in it at that point. Still not knowing that it was about the BP oil disaster, I just kind of lost interest in the film in general. Like I said, it wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't anything I haven't seen before. So as far as a film, it gets a 3. So again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are in the description. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.